Hello, welcome to 8.9 News. I'm Costain. A new strategic collaboration between Beyond Zero, the UK Carbon Code of Conduct, and Nature Broking aims to help deliver integrity and certainty into the voluntary carbon market. Doug Wanstall is from Beyond Zero. I asked him to explain why he thinks there's a problem that needs fixing.
Yeah, good question. So the voluntary carbon market has been around for, 25 years roughly, and no one's ever really heard of it until the last sort of five or six. Um, it's fair to say it's been finding its feet. It's a market that hasn't really known where the standard should lie, and I think we've seen some projects globally where there hasn't been sufficient oversight, there hasn't been sufficient transparency, traceability, credibility, and what we've seen is projects that are effectively phantom. They either don't exist or are of an incredibly low quality. And that's what needs addressing, is the transparency and improving the quality of projects, the traceability and accountability.
As you say, the market isn't new, but until now, global trading's generally been in larger units. Now that individual farmers are wanting to trade their carbon, is this adding a new level of complexity?
It's added complexity, but it's also added a considerable opportunity. What we're seeing, and it's because of the lack of integrity and because of the well-documented problems that we've experienced within the voluntary carbon market, we're seeing that corporations, small companies, large companies, big and small individuals, individual people, there's a flight to quality. There's a flight to being to investing in a project where they can go and visit. They can look the farmer in the eye and say and see where their investment has gone. They can see the birds, bees, and butterflies that have benefited from their project investment.
Now, you've said that net zero is necessary, but that on its own it's insufficient. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so this is where we sort of stand out really, and this is part of the UK Carbon Code in that a project has to be at net zero prior to selling any credits, and that's twofold really. One is that the people buying these things they're on a net zero journey themselves. And so they want the person they're buying from to have done their bit. Agriculture needs to do its bit. Land management has been, to a large degree, responsible for the climate crisis that we are in, and it needs to play its part in the reversal of climate change and the reversal of biodiversity collapse. So yeah, we insist on net zero before any credits are sold. And it's not actually that difficult. It doesn't take a lot with a farm with a good degree of natural capital and some really good changes in management, actually, that end up making more money as well. That's a long-term outcome. That actually becoming net zero is just good business.
When you say that net zero is insufficient, do you also mean that farmers need to be delivering other nature outcomes alongside their sequestration?
Absolutely. Any project that's just delivering carbon is insufficient. It's actually what we're trying to do is get away from silo thinking. It's not just about removing carbon. We're focusing more on nature restoration, on nature recovery, on projects that deliver on multiple levels, multiple goals. And actually, carbon is just one of the outcomes. Other outcomes include better water storage, cleaner water, cleaner air, more resilient soils, more resilient crops, and generally a more climate resilient farming business.
And it's part of the challenge that the carbon element itself is more monetizable and these other things are less tangible.
Absolutely right. Yeah, the carbon element is the bit that the CFO understands. They understand a carbon credit. They're generally carbon accounting, certainly in large corporations, and therefore they can see the value of carbon. Therefore, carbon is the thing that has a value. But the other outcomes are what we term as co-benefits. I mean, actually, they're generally the primary benefit that just happens to draw down carbon as well.
Now, the existing carbon market's often been described as a wild west, and yet this is a critical tool that farmers and landowners can use to fund action to restore nature. What do you think needs to happen to deliver the necessary integrity in the voluntary carbon market?
Yeah, it's the first thing I hear from farmers really is that, and I'm a farmer as well, so we're a cynical bunch, but it's the first thing I hear that carbon's cowboy territory. It's meaningless. It's just allowing other people to carry on regardless. What we need to remember is that land management, farming and land management is absolutely unique. in the fact that we can not only reduce our emissions quickly and steadily, but we can also draw down atmospheric carbon and put it into new trees, agroforestry, wetland creation, a regenerative agricultural transition. There are so many things that farming and land management can do to draw down that carbon, but it comes at a cost. And so those that can't draw down atmospheric carbon, your airlines and your steel producers, and they have money to invest in delivering strong, tangible projects that they can visit, their clients can visit, their customers can visit, and can connect. And that really is where we believe the sea change is coming in the carbon market, is that connectivity between those guys that are investing in carbon credits and those guys on the ground, the farmers and land managers who are delivering really good quality projects. And it's the oversight of those projects that's been missing that we're introducing.
What does that oversight look like? What are the guardrails that can be put in place to create that integrity?
So it starts with baselining. So it starts with creating some rigorous baselines. Okay, it's where we at today. So we create baselines that include a total natural capital audit, total emissions audit, and generally a soil carbon audit to work out where we're at now. We then set a plan and a target to increase carbon removals and to reduce carbon emissions, to make that balance between emissions and sequestration removals as large as possible, growing on an annual basis to increase that margin of difference. But really, what's key is that we measure. We don't model, and it's measurement that's key. Now, measuring soil carbon is one of those subjects that, again, it can be quite contentious, but you can only do and only follow the best current advice. And that's what we do. So we've developed a protocol that measures the current baseline and then measures the change over time.
What depth are you measuring to?
So where soil conditions allow, down to 90 centimeters. And in three stratas, because we've got 0 to 30, 30 to 60, 60 to 90. And it's actually at depth that offers the greatest opportunity. Because by growing things like, in a livestock scenario, going from a ryegrass situation to growing a diverse, deep-rooting mixture of herbs and grasses and lucerne and all of these things, actually the ability to pump that carbon deep below the sort of soil management layer, if you like, which is generally the 0 to 30 strata. That's the opportunity to really pump a lot of carbon and to leave it there permanently.
There are a number of carbon trading companies trying to get farmers to sell credits from their land. Now, you said that it's only when an entire land holding has achieved net zero that carbon credits should be issued. And I don't think that's happening at the moment. Is that the case? And if so, how damaging is that to carbon market integrity?
Yeah, that is definitely the case. It's only the case in our system at the moment. And yes, it is the case that farmers are able to sell carbon credits, and I put those in inverted commas. I'm not going to name any names, but there are farmers selling carbon credits, and I don't blame the farmers, by the way. These companies are effectively offering, dare I say it, free money. But actually, we don't believe that is sufficient. We believe that is going to have to change over time. We believe that those other organisations will have to adapt, because the more traction that let's say the more vigorous schemes have, the more they are going to have to change, or they'll either have to adapt or die.
As it stands, do you think that it's possible that farmers could, perhaps unintentionally, sell credits more than once?
That is a risk, yes. So we have to be very careful whenever we take on a project, we have to be very careful that a farm isn't already involved in in another carbon project. Or if they are, that we're really clear where the boundaries lie and we can exclude anything that they have done in order to develop a project. And then we've developed what we call a single source of truth map, which shows all the projects and the project boundaries, and we won't allow any other carbon crediting system to operate within that boundary.
Should farmers be looking to trade their carbon now, or should they wait until there are better guardrails in place?
I think if you follow a scheme, and shameless plug like ours, then the guardrails are in place because we're aligning with the likes of the Integrity Council for the Scaling of Voluntary Carbon Markets, the BSI minimum standards. We haven't seen the full detail yet of what they look like, but there are minimum standards coming out. And once those minimum standards are established, I think then farmers can be a lot more confident in selling carbon credits. Our advice is to, if you're not sure, wait. If you've got a credible system and a credible buyer at the end, then go for it. There's nothing to lose. If you've got a credible buyer who wants to invest in your business and in your ability to regenerate, remove carbon and regenerate nature, then to my mind, it's a win-win scenario.
Farmers, generally speaking, produce food and manage land, so selling carbon is new. If they're considering doing this within this Wild West environment that we've been discussing, what should they be looking for to know that a company's offer is robust?
I think look who they're partnered with. Number one, to see who they're partnering with, who are their what does the supply chain look like? Who are the end consumers of these credits? If they can be completely transparent and show that a project will issue credits over here and the customer is X multinational organization or government organization or whatever over there, then you can be quite sure that the system is credible. If you're never told where the customer is for these credits, I would steer clear.
Do you think that most farmers and landowners understand that net zero is a journey rather than a destination, and that having achieved net zero, it's not a constant, and that action will be needed each and every year to remain at net zero?
Yeah, I think look, net zero is, again, it's another contentious issue, and we hear it all the time, and there's lots of anti net zero rhetoric that we hear, but essentially, once you've got to net zero, it's relatively easy to stay there, unless, of course, you radically change your business and its activities, or flatten every forest that you have on your land, which, of course, is highly unlikely in any event. But actually, once you get to net zero, it becomes quite infectious, actually. And this is what we find. We work with organizations where it's become endemic within the organization to continually reduce emissions and to increase carbon removals. So, and what we do is we'll certify that net zero position so that a farmer can take that to their supply chain and demonstrate that they are at net zero and have an annual plan to remain there.
That was Doug Wanstall from Beyond Zero. More news as ever on our website, 8.9.com. That's all for now. We're back soon. Thanks for watching.